3 years ago now, to Venice Audubon. So here's a picture of a swallowtail kite, an adult, on a beautiful April day in my neighborhood. And I like this photo because you can really see they are indeed beautiful hawks. In fact, to me, they don't really look like a hawk right there. So Jack's told you, I've been basically studying swallowtail kites by watching them, photographing them, following them around for the past 5 years. And before that, I was in Manhattan. I moved here 6 years ago, and I was sort of a bird lover in an abstract sort of way. And then I moved here and I couldn't help but get very involved in watching birds, and especially swallowtail kites, as I'm going to tell you all about. So as you can see, I keep saying they're really beautiful. I find them very inspiring to watch. What's wonderful about them is that they're so graceful. And I find it very amusing that the popular bird guide ornithologists wax poetic about them. David Sibley says extremely graceful. Roger Torrey Peterson says a sleek, elegant, black and white hawk that flies with incomparable grace. Richard Crossley says simply beautiful, the epitome of grace. It would have been at home in the movie The Avatar, and elsewhere he says the coolest bird on the planet. And Audubon Field Guide says our most beautiful bird of prey. It's a joy to watch. And as you can see from this photo, they're actually very easy to identify. But many people have never seen them, to my surprise. They fly so high and they're so agile that sometimes I think you can miss them unless they fly right over you. They're 22 inches long and they have a 4-foot wingspan. And both male and the female is slightly bigger, and the juveniles have a shorter, wider tail. And they're extraordinary acrobats, as you'll see in some of the video and photos that I'm going to show. I should say at the outset that except for one photo of many, many kites taken by Ken Meyer, my mentor with avian Research and Conservation Institute, RCI, in Gainesville, all the photos have been taken by me, all the videos by me or by my partner, Leslie Austin. So let me show you more here. Just getting the hang of the, there. So swallowtail kites, or any species of kite, as the bird, as the hawk, throughout the world, kites, paper kites were named after them, not the other way around. And again, this photo was taken across the street from where I live. And to me, they really look like kites right there. And they love the wind. They are just, the more wind, the better. And that was quite a wind that day. And here's another view in my own neighborhood. Just getting the video to queue up here. Whoops, sorry. This is a bunch of kites, maybe 20, 25, flying in for the night. And they love to fly around together in groups, except when they're nesting, as I'll show you later. And they're circling above cypress trees, which you don't see so well here. That just gives you a sneak preview of their flying. So swallowtail kites are not here right now, as you may know. They come basically starting the end of February. Last year, I saw them for the first time just north of Sarasota County on February 26th. Given how wacky the weather is, I wouldn't be surprised if I was looking out, walking tonight, wondering if I'd see one in time for the talk. But they mostly will be here starting very early March, and they're here through August. And they come from South America, where they are snowbirds there for fall there. So in any case, they're up here for spring into summer, and they're here to mate, to meet their mates. Many of them, they don't fly from South America with their mates. They meet their mates. They have their chicks in their nests, and then they raise their chicks. They fledge, they fly around and get strong, and then they fly back, and they fly from Florida, usually the tip of Florida, to the Yucatan. And that's a pretty monumental part of their trip. And then they most often fly through Central America into the Pantanal and northern Brazil over the Andes. And they make this round trip, every 6 months, or one way every 6 months. And together it's 10,000 miles, and it's a very high mortality. They can sometimes they're amazing flyers, but sometimes they can get trapped flying over the Gulf. So for me, I was really, I had seen kites once, just two flying in my neighborhood, and I never had not seen them again. And then in July 2016, I was in my backyard and the sun was starting to go down, and suddenly 7 or 8 flew right over my head and over my front roof and out to the street. And being a conditioned birder, I grabbed my binoculars and shouted to Leslie to bring her camera. And we went out the front door, and there they were in my neighbor's backyard. Fortunately, they were on the side yard, so I could ask for permission to run to their backyard, which they freely gave. And there were kites in the tree. And I was amazed. I had no idea what was going on. I thought this was a once in a lifetime opportunity to see the kites. And they were circling around the tree calling. And we went around, you can see more clearly on this side in the setting sun. And again, I thought this was a once, I'd never see them again. But this was only the beginning. I started watching my neighbor's tree the next day and rainy afternoons, and started to notice that they were there really all of the July into early August, coming and going at night, leaving in the morning, and then every year since, including last summer. So it was really their coming to my own neighborhood that got me so excited, and I started to learn more about them. So again, I've already told you why the kites are in North America. And because I was so interested in the kites, I started to talk to Ken Myers again of RCI, my kite mentor. He said, look, you've seen how they roost, now go find nests. And wow, I thought, oh, okay. I took him very seriously. And I went to try to find nests in my neighborhood. And I don't know if you've ever tried to find any bird nests when you're told to go do so, but wow, I couldn't find them anywhere in my neighborhood. So I finally prevailed upon a birder friend of mine, Stephanie Green, who some of you may know, who seemed to know where to find any bird anywhere. And she had me meet her in Carlton Reserve. Now, being from Venice Audubon, you know, probably that Carlton Reserve is in Venice inland, and it supplies a lot of the water for Sarasota County. And I will show you my specific 3 summers looking at kite nests. But first, I'm just going to show you some general overviews of what you see when you're looking at kite nests. So you're looking at one right here with this yellow arrow. And if you look closer, you can sort of see a white breast there, which is a roosting kite there, a nesting kite. This is another view of Carlton, another nest. And the nest looks like it's at the base, but it's actually sort of up here in the tree. So incubation is done by both kite parents for, as I say here, 27 to 33 days. And one of the things I noticed in watching kites in Carlton and looking at nests is that the parents take turns with nest sitting. So here's the nest with a kite on it, and here's the mate flying in. And this is unusual to see them both land in the nest together, switching duty, and then one taking off to take its turn doing incubating duty. So this is another kite coming in to do his or her incubating duty. And both sexes have a bare spot on their breast during this time of incubation, which allows them to keep the eggs warm. And this is a female kite enticing a baby that's still too young to pop up above the nest. And this, what? I'm sorry. So in Carlton, this is when I saw my first nest, which was when I prevailed upon my friend Stephanie Green. And this is, all of these nests are very high up. In fact, almost every photo, if not every photo I'm showing you, is high up in a tree. And this is no exception. The female is on the right, and she's just received a frog from her mate who just flew in to deliver it. Now, sadly, this nest, I was so excited to see my first nest. I went back 10 days later and the nest had failed. It's not clear exactly why. Perhaps it was predated, in other words, killed by their mortal enemy, the great horned owl, or even perhaps a barred owl. Or perhaps they just left, or the nest failed because it seemed to have been on a popular walkway on a part of Carlton where people, once they whispered or told the next person, they would come and see it. And there was just too many views by humans. Not clear why the nest failed. So for various reasons, I didn't get back to nest hunting until almost the next year. And I went back to Carlton. And I prevailed upon Debbie Blanco, who was then the land manager. I offered to help go look for kite nests, and I'm giggling because I didn't know how to find nests, really. I don't know what I was thinking, but she sent me some pictures and said, hey, a hiker saw a nest. Why don't you go check it out, see if it's there? So never having hiked anywhere in Florida, I prevailed upon my birding friend, Scott Dingman, and we kind of blithered out on a long trail. And really, it was just maybe beginner's luck, but we started out on the trail and a kite flew low right toward us, almost as though to welcome us. And we kept going and going. And I got very excited to look in every tree I could. And this is where I saw the nest right here. And here is a close-up of what I saw. And there are 2 little chicks here. Again, I'm looking up and off into the distance. And here's a close-up. And I think the younger one is in the far front, and then behind it is an older chick, and of course, then the mother. And they stay in these nests for about 40 days. So this was the beginning of my real nest adventures. I was so proud of myself that I found the nest. This was not the nest that Debbie had talked about. This was my unique discovery, maybe beginner's luck. So here's a view of the older chick and the mom's eye in the background. And these chicks all seem to have big eyes at the beginning. Oh, in case you don't know, this is the crop where they store food. A lot of birds have crops, and that's a good sign that it's big like that. Another view of the older chick here. Actually, this is taken a week later. I started faithfully to go back, and this is quite a schlep, to use a New York word, quite a distance from where I live. It's about 40 minutes from home, and then a hike of 40 minutes into the nest. And I could stand right under the tree, which made it very unique to be able to really observe closely. And I kept trying to get views of the younger chick, and the best I could do was here on the left. You can see its rear. It's getting a bit of the dark feathers in, which make it a more mature chick, and the eye of the mother, and then the older chick in the kind of buried there in the bushes. Okay, here's the older chick again. And, you know, 1 minute they're awake and the next minute they're conking out, going to sleep and then back awake. So then I went the next week, and this was a surprise to me. I've been reading a lot about kites in the meantime, chicks, all about them. But so it's now, I guess, about 3.5 weeks old, and two questions came to mind. Of course, where are the parents? Well, the parents, they're both off hunting and they're very busy feeding this growing chick. But what was upsetting to me is, where the heck was the younger chick? I looked everywhere and I walked around the tree. In any case, it just simply had gone. And most likely, this is an example of what happens with many hawks. Many hawk chicks, the older chick kills the younger chick. It's called siblicide. And it's very common, although I have, as I'll show you later in the presentation, not always by any means. So in any case, the younger chick disappeared with this nest. There it is, panting. The nest is right up there in the sun. So I went back yet a week later, and I was getting very attached to this kite, to this nest, and I was really worried because I just didn't see the kite for the longest time, and I'm standing down below and listening to the birds, but where is the chick? So eventually it pops up. It's there after all. And the chick starts to move around, and it's standing up consistently, which is very important for its development. And all of its fluffy down is gone. I don't know, to me, it looks like it still has fluffy down, but compared to what it had earlier, there's no down there now. And it's starting to spread its wings. I think looking to the sky, where I think you kites feel they really belong. And as I say here, growing takes a lot of energy, and the yellow tinge here is, I'm sure, urine. By this time, the nest can get quite dirty. So I decide, wow, this is looking kind of like, it's growing up awful fast. I better start coming out to Carlton more frequently. So 3 days later, it's a view of the chick, who's now very focused on parents delivering food. And here's a view of its feet, which seem outsized to its body. You can see these big feet. And they have short legs. They're not much for walking around. They're so busy flying. And again, as I say, they become very preoccupied with eating. And here is a view of the same day, waiting for food delivery. And they have keen eyesight and see the parent coming in with food. Now, my goal at this point, one of my goals was to get the parent flying in with the food and deliver it. And it was not too easy to do. So this is just a view of the anxiously awaiting chick. And I got a photo of the delivery, but not of the delivery being made. Here's the frog that the adult had delivered. And they just deliver so fast. It's very, very challenging to get the right photo, the right video. Okay, so now it's June 3rd, 3 days later. And the chick is out of the nest, 3 feet to the left there, right here. And here's the nest. Perched precariously sort of between some branches. And here comes the parent with the frog. This is a very common silhouette of an adult delivering food, that view of the frog. It's either a lizard or a frog, most likely, not always. And here, at least I got it on photo. Here's the rear end of the chick, and the adult delivering the frog. And now the chick has the frog. And it's so funny, you know, you get so used to photographing a nest and the only way you can photograph it is from a certain angle, and suddenly realize while I'm there, wait a minute, now they're in a completely different place. So I swing around and I get a much better view of the chick. Doesn't look so much like a little chick anymore. It looks like it's almost a juvenile kite. So this is the same day. And this is I do finally get the video of the adult feeding the chick. So please watch closely and I'll narrate because this happens, the feeding part happens super fast. So here we go. So that was the parent. The parent flew up. It's going to fly over. It's quite, they're amazing navigators and can always get to feed their chicks, their fledglings, but it has to keep sort of circling around to get into the nest the right way. Now, it's actually going to come into the nest, which is down over here, and watch from right where my arrow is. And the chick is also watching its parents. So watch the way it's looking. It's going to watch the parent come in here. It's getting kind of excited again. The adult is getting closer with some kind of food. So the adult is in this nest butchering something. I'm sad to say it's a baby bird, but I don't know for sure. Now, suddenly the parent's gonna zip out and feed the kite. So watch the chick here. So watch closely. It's a very fast experience. And then the adult's going to fly across the top of the screen there. So again, this is just a different view. It's kind of straightening itself out there, wobbling around. You know, I thought maybe it would fly off for the first time right when I was there, but it didn't do that. Here's another view. And you can see it's not really an adult, but it's looking pretty adult, more adult than chick at this point. So I went back another 3 days later. Actually, this is the same day, previous 3 days. And again, as you can see, I thought it might fly off at any moment, but it didn't. And then I went back 3 days later and the chick was gone. It had fledged, and I walked around everywhere, looking in the trees, looking on the ground. I just didn't see it anywhere. And actually, I didn't have much experience knowing what would happen when they fledged, and I'll show you more later about what happens when they do leave the nest. But sad to say, this was the end of that nest observing experience. So I was so happy I found a nest that I volunteered to work with Debbie Blanco, the land manager, and with Charlie Sample. And the three of us went looking and checking out nests the next spring from early April through late June. And actually, Debbie found the nests, and Charlie and I mostly drove around in his SUV or my SUV, which was great fun driving the back roads. And we checked on 6 nests, 2 failed, 4 produced 5 chicks. 1 nest had 2. So not always did the older chick kill the younger chick. And you don't need to read all of this, but just the bottom line is I always wondered just how many nests were actually there. At another time around then, I saw another fledged kite with it flying with its parents, but it was hard to know how many nests we had really discovered or had been observing, maybe a quarter to a third of all that were out there. And then what were we doing this for? In part, it was we were county volunteers, Sarasota County volunteers, but we were reporting the nest results to RCI, the Avian Research and Conservation people, again, the swallowtail kite premier researchers in the United States. So just to talk about one highlight of this fun experience in 2019 was to go and find the nest, or actually Debbie Blanco, the land manager, found this nest, but she told us how to go find it. So there is a kite that was named Sarasota by our research friends because they put a transmitter on it. I'll show you a photo of that in a minute. And it broadcast, or they could get its GPS coordinates at any time. So it had been here, this was its 3rd summer, and everybody is pretty clear it had a nest somewhere out in Carlton. And God bless Debbie Blanco with RCI, the coordinates, they found it in among these trees. Now, to me, this is the Florida wilderness, man. This is a dried out marsh, but driving my SUV was really something. This was very bumpy. This was not a road. This was really out in the outback. Or that's what I thought it felt like. And this is where Debbie marked, she beat her way through the palmettos here. And you can see this orange band right here on this tree. And Charlie and I are standing back on this road. Debbie wasn't with us. It's like, are you kidding me? We're going to go in there. It's very high palmettos, taller than we are. And this is all slash pines and these amazing bird calls. But it's like, do people walk through that to get to those trees, to photograph those nests? And we didn't have to do it, but I got Debbie on the cell phone a lot, and I managed to get in there, and this is what I was able to photograph. So have you seen this photo already? But this is Sarasota's mate. And I can't tell you, I was amazed that I could get any view of anything. This nest is way up there. So this is, again, the mate, and this is Sarasota, the male kite with a transmitter here on its back. And it's flying with a lizard in its talons. That was just a few minutes after I saw the nest. So this became a project of mine to go check this nest every time I went to Carlton. So it was about once a week. And this is about a month later. Obviously, the chick is alive and well up in this nest. And this video is to show you what it's like seeing a nest and pulling out, and give you an idea of where I am in relation to the nest. Again, this is slash pines, and I'm standing in the palmetto down below. It's a lot of heavy brush. And there. I lower the camera a little bit and you can see here those frogs and all kinds of things calling there. Here, this is the brush level. And I'm going to zoom back in. So can you even see where the camera's going to go to the nest? Again, it's about 3.5 weeks old, looking extremely healthy. So this is the last view I had of this chick, which was 2 days later. I took a few birder friends out to see this nest. And I had grand plans of coming out right after this and really tracking it closely up until the time it fledged. And as luck would have it, the weather kind of put a crimp in my plans. It started to rain a lot and often. And Debbie, the land manager, said, Margie, nobody's driving out there. It's too muddy. Even in my SUV, even in her truck, she couldn't get out there. And by the time we checked again, we're sure it fledged and fledged successfully. So, sorry. To my joy, about a month later, I think it was a month or two later, somebody reported seeing swallowtail kites, a group of swallowtail kites. It was 2 adults and 2 recently fledged kites. So it was a family group. And they were teaching their newly fledged chicks, the kites, how to hunt. And they were in the Celery Fields area, which has been referred to tonight earlier. It's the kind of premier, wonderful area to go birding in the middle of Sarasota County. So here we are. This is an adult flying toward the very demanding newly fledged kites. This is on Center Road for those of you who know the area. This is all photos of the area. This is an adult bringing in something. I'm not quite sure what it's got in its bill there. And here are the demanding fledglings, one on either side of the parent who's got a frog. And this is a video showing the very diligent adult trying to get the food to the very demanding kids. And you'll see the fledglings fly onto this bare tree first. There's fledgling number 1, fledgling number 2, and here's the adult. And it's adjusting the food in its bill. Now, this is a great video for seeing how beautifully they maneuver. It's incredibly windy, and it's trying to bank to get back to actually feed one of the kites, one of the fledglings here. It didn't actually feed there. It looked like it tried to, but it had to turn around. They can just sort of begin to hunt at this point, but they'd rather be fed. They're still babies in that regard. They don't want to have to hunt. So they're frantically waiting, and the adult is still trying to get in there to feed the lower one here. And success. Sorry. And here are 2 photos of the adult is on the left here. And again on the left, upper left. And maybe I'm anthropomorphizing a bit, but to me it looks like where did mommy go with the food? And here's another short video. Fledgling being fed. So after the young leave the nest and before they all fly south to the Yucatan in South America, swallowtail kites fly around a lot. They love to fly, they love to travel even within the United States. And there's a kind of roost that's really only visited before migration. And kites, as I say here, tend to remember and return to these specific roosts year after year. But the interesting thing is they can remember various different ones. So they'll fly, you know, ones that we see here might fly in a group all the way up to Cape May, or all around and roost in different places. And they tend to find the local kites and come home with them for the night and land in their particular roosts. And so anyway, this is the biggest roost. This was taken by RCI Ken Meyer. This is just a part of the biggest roost, which is Fish Eating Creek, near Fish Eating Creek, west of Lake Okeechobee, in the heart of the sugar growing area, and a constant concern for their well-being. And this is, again, the tree in which I first saw these kites. It finally dawned on me that I had a pre-migratory roost right in my own front yard or in my neighbor's backyard. And this is a photo of my quote unquote migratory roost at probably its maximum capacity, or the maximum number of birds I ever counted there, which was 44. So it was small, but it was pre-migratory roost in that a certain number of birds, especially those with newly fledged chicks, would go directly from here, fly south to South America. They might not all tour around. Here's again, I've already said that they like to travel around. So no telling how many kites are actually in the roosts in my neighborhood each year. And so I ask here, what do kites do when they roost here in July and August? And I live here, and there are lots and lots of trees all around. And this is a golf course fairway, which is really important. They like golf courses, especially with wild edges and pine trees on the edges. So this is some photos. Again, we're way back in my neighborhood, and these are kites coming in for the night for the pre-migratory moose around, really right down the street from where I live. And this is Super Kite. And as you might have already gathered from photos, I don't know if you could tell or not, but there is one tree, and that was the tree where I first saw them and first got to know that kites indeed roosted in my neighborhood at night and through to the morning. And they tend to pick the tallest tree in their area. And this is that tree from another perspective, actually out on the golf course. It's like a beacon. It's like their meeting hall, their meeting place. And from there, they might all as a group go and actually roost in another nearby tree for the night. But this is always the place that they would come first. It's like the landmark in the local area. And this is a video showing some action at this same tree. It's a kind of cloudy nightfall. And that high-pitched call is the fledgling demanding food of any adult that's nearby. And you'll start to hear the deeper calls of the adults flying in. Among those could be the fledgling's parents, but any adult will do when they want food. That galloping call is a typical adult cheery call coming in. The begging call of Junior here. And here's some the same time. There's a Junior kite looking for handouts. Any adult with food will do. It's flying out again. It's flying back. Maybe this adult will feed me. And they're totally, by this point, this is sort of like the beginning of August, end of July. They can feed themselves, but they still have that begging instinct going. So again, in my immediate neighborhood, they either sleep in that tree I showed you, or they fly down a ways and they like to gather in the 4-tree cypress grove, which is right on the edge of this lake. And they like to get close together. The closer, the better. And they stay in these cypress trees quite often, except when it gets too wet. And the rains often start end of July into August, and then they have to go back to the pine trees because the cypress trees just get too saggy. So in case you haven't gathered by now, when they're no longer nesting, they're very communal in their orientation. Unlike most raptors, they fly in groups. They leave in the morning, they come back at night, and they collect in these trees. So here they're sleeping, they're preening, they're hunkering down in the rain, looking rather soggy. And in the morning, they come back to this, often to this beacon tree, which seems to get the sun full on, and they bake and bake and snooze again till they get warmed up and the thermal air currents are rising so that they can soar around. They're not early risers. So this is a kite that's just landed into the group. Let me just get my here with a wasp's nest. And this is a great delicacy among kites, swallowtail kites. They love to eat the larvae out of the nest. And this particular, although they're very group oriented, this kind ain't sharing know-how. And in fact, this is just one photo, but there are other photos I have where it's flying around and around showing off its fabulous food, but it's not going to share it. And you can see from the expressions on the other kites' faces, they are pretty jealous. I guess that's projection, but they look jealous to me. So kites love lightning. And this was taken on a very scary lightning storm night or afternoon. And we were taking these photos under the portico because we were scared we'd get zapped. But they were having a grand old time. No rain, just incredible lightning. And here are 2 scenes from one afternoon windstorm. And to me, it shows how much the kites adore flying. I think they really live to fly. So over the years, and especially starting last summer, I started to realize that probably the kites have been here forever. The cellular memory, they remember places where they come to nest, where they come to roost before they migrate. And this is that beacon tree again. And it's a self-pruning tree, so it may look old. Its bark is very smooth. It may be an old growth tree. And this area used to be packed with longleaf pine trees. And of course, with all the development, more and more trees are cut down. Fortunately, not in my immediate neighborhood, but I just want to make a point here that they probably have been here forever, and they have a kind of cellular memory. And it's so important that we not cut down trees unless we simply have to. So July and August, they leave for South America, and they leave little by little, groups by groups. And the fledglings don't go with their parents. They leave a little later. So 2020 was a surprise year in many respects for all of us, I know. And nothing to do with the pandemic. Right when it looked like, oh my gosh, I really shouldn't be running around, I should stay at home, I just happened to be out birding and found 2 kite nests. And there was a lot going on. We moved across the street in our neighborhood. So I was thrilled to be able to stay at home and follow these 2 kite nests. I finally achieved what I had been tasked to do by my mentor, Ken Meyer, find those kite nests. And I found them finally in my very own neighborhood. So the one on the left, that nest, well, that was practically right under my nose, but I think until I did all that work observing in Carlton, I never would have known how to find it. I can answer how to tell you more about that and question and answer if you like. And the one on the right was just an amazing, wasn't really luck, but it was it was across the river and through the woods. It was really buried in there. So these are views of the nest. The one on the left produced, these are nest views. You may not be able to tell the one on the left, but those are 2 maturing chicks. The one, this chick here on the branch left this nest the next day. And for 2 weeks, it flew around and flew back to the nest more and more at night. And it finally, this is the younger chick here. And it finally, they only left, when the younger chick left the nest and didn't fly around first, but when it left, the older one left for good. So they seemed oddly bonded, at least through the nesting period. When they were fledglings, they separated, but one obviously older chick here did not kill the younger chick. So who knows, maybe, I don't know what makes one nest different than another. Now the nest on the right was a single kite. And I don't know what it's got in its bill. Could be a mouse. It's got this kind of orange tinge to its feathers on its neck, and you can't see too well here on its breast. And that's, you see that with some young swallowtail kites. Not all, as you can see on the left, but on the right, it's in evidence. So one thing, I got to really study fledglings this summer. It was a wonderful experience. And I could see them with their parents. I just was able to see the nest and watch them leave. And it was really a big learning about what happens once they leave the nest. And the parents are amazing. No matter where the fledgling has dropped out of the nest and no matter where it's gone, they somehow know how to find them. Can you find the fledgling in this tree? This is actually the nest tree way up above, and it's just covered with sphagnum moss below. So actually, here is the fledgling looking a little forlorn. And here the parents have delivered 2 frogs, and it seems like it just really doesn't care. It wants to be up there flying with its parents. And finally it does. So here's the young kite flying free. And here are the other 2 kites. I'm not sure which is the older or younger. They flew across the street the same day. And they flew into a tree, which was kind of like the fledgling adult roost tree right across the street from their nest. And here they are down below. So let me go back here for a minute. They stayed, the two young fledglings here stayed around this tree, and I was able to spot them for 2 weeks, coming and going and flying and coming back. And then finally they weren't there anymore. And I wondered where they went. And it took me a few minutes to realize, oh my gosh, they actually went back to the pre-roost tree. And this is the pre-roost tree. So they are back. It's like my research came full circle this summer. I found them back where I first saw them. So that's my talk. And here are the credits.
And bravo, that was really nice. Very, very nice. Great pictures, great story. You put it together.